Grammar for Writing, presented by Dimity, Chivers,
Tom Paxman,
and Jaylene Swaby.
The textbook states that grammar is the whole system and structure of language, including syntax, morphology, phonology, and semantics, and conventions for use.
the importance of teaching grammar. Humans develop their own subconscious understanding of grammar through exposure to the English language, during speech and reading aloud in the early years. Grammar is required by all individuals as a means for communicating and for constructing effective texts that can be easily read by others. As it was mentioned previously, every individual has developed a certain level of grammar within their home environment. When we teach grammar, it is important that the basics are covered. For example, we know what a noun is, what a verb is, what an adjective is, and so on. But it's also essential that we know how sentences and words are constructed. It can be said students know grammar when they have a firm understanding of these things. The three elements of the curriculum. The English curriculum is comprised of three components: the English language itself, literature, and literacy. The process of learning and studying English grammar is embarked upon through these three areas. Grammar also includes the learning of language to talk about English. This is known as meta-language. The first component of the English curriculum is the English language itself. This includes the study of sounds, words, syntactic patterns, sentences, paragraphs, and whole texts. Also included are the cultural expectations, both formal and informal, that regulate the use of English from time to time in spoken, written, and multimedia form. Literature. Literature includes the study of all forms of literature written in English and selected literature from other language available in translation. The study involves all types of texts, including narrative, report, argument, and transactional and everyday texts. Literature also includes texts that explore human experience and response in story, biography, poetry, drama, and multimedia. Literacy. Literacy includes the learning and application of skills for comprehending all forms of text, spoken, written, and multimedia, from literal meaning to all forms of higher order thinking. The study also involves learning to compose text for a range of personal, social, vocational, academic, and recreational purposes. Grammar can be thought of as being taught as a set of tools. There are 4 principles for teaching grammar that are taken from a Thomason and Ward book. Tools, not rules. Teaching grammar in the writing classroom. First principle, grammar is a tool for writers. Second principle, grammar is learned through exposure to meaningful language. Third principle, grammar must be studied as a discipline. And the fourth principle, grammar is best taught in the context of writing. Principle 1, grammar is a tool for writers. Thomason and Ward describe grammar as being a tool for writers. They proceed to compare grammar to a hammer or tool used by carpenters. Grammar is to writers as hammers are to carpenters. If you compliment a carpenter on a house he has just built, he won't talk about the hammers he used. He wants to talk about the house itself and why it's so beautiful or functional. The hammer was only a tool that drove nails that fastened boards together. Hammers don't exist to be celebrated, but to be used. Used correctly, they do not call attention to themselves, but to the project they help to make possible. Students are taught the grammatical rules shown how they exist and operate within texts, and then are able to use these subconsciously. Principle 2, grammar is learned through exposure to meaningful language. We're all exposed to grammar from the day we are born, by listening to those around us in the form of speak, and by being read aloud to. As time progresses, we are exposed to more meaningful text that allow us to develop our grammar within our speech and our writing especially. Thomason and Ward state, most grammar that we use in speaking and writing is learned in just this way, from listening and reading. Many great writers are innocent of technical knowledge of grammar. They couldn't identify a participle if their life depended on it, but they use participles effectively and correctly in everyday writing. Principle 3. Grammar must be studied as a discipline. This can be seen to complement Principle 2, in that it allows students who bring good grammar to class from exposure to books and speakers who use language correctly. Grammar study can provide the categories that help them organise what they already know and extend it. Students not exposed to lots of meaningful print texts or literate conversations can be exposed to the conventions of language and provide an important foundation for future growth. Principle 4. Grammar is best taught in the concept of writing. Grammar needs to be taught in a writing environment. Just teaching definitions of parts of grammar are not effective on their own. Students need to see grammar within texts and need to use it within text. By teaching grammar like this and giving students opportunities to put their learning into practice, they construct effective foundations for future development within writing.
The approach in which a teacher attacks the teaching of grammar is considered to be quite subtle in the early stages of learning. It values the importance of exposure to grammar. For example, students listen, observe, and experience grammar through the use of others, subconsciously gaining an understanding. There are so many different components to English grammar, and good models of English drive our language. Therefore, it is important when teaching grammar to incorporate mini lessons and address intensive grammar at points of need. Grammar should not be taught in isolation, as it is embedded in the English language, as a vital element in speech and written English. This is demonstrated through the idea that grammar is woven into all three strands of the curriculum. Language context is also a valuable tool that can be incorporated into teaching children grammar, as it is derived from children's own language experience. One particular strategy in developing grammar in writing is through the language experience technique. Language experience is a strategy implemented by the teacher to create a shared experience that exposes children to a situation or environment that is authentic. By creating a rich environment or experience, it provides a teaching focus which can be used in a shared writing process to compose a text. The benefits of shared writing is that the teacher is able to demonstrate and prompt correct use of grammar in writing. This again emphasises the idea of children's exposure to good models of English. Some examples for rich experiences include guest speakers and excursions, cooking and procedural activities, or becoming an archaeologist. According to the text, Literacy for the 21st Century, an exposure to books is the best way to develop children's grammatical skills. Books can include stories, biographies, poems and descriptions, any piece that is well written and provides young readers with inspiration and the models of language patterns, which are essential to grammar. This idea of reading to children supports the notion that grammar is best developed through exposing children to various sources of language, emphasising how subconscious understanding of written and spoken language is developed. Due to teachers under constant pressure with the limitation of time in the classroom, not enough time can be spent on reading books. For this reason, parental support and involvement in the process of shared reading at home will greatly assist the students. However, it is suggested that the most economical and effective way to employ this strategy in the classroom is to read to children for 20 minutes every day. As children become more developed in speaking and writing grammatically, emphasis can be placed on the rules of usage in grammar, as well as the components of grammar such as nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. This can be implemented and taught through mini lessons, where the teacher can produce and ask questions and examples, then build on their knowledge by providing information and guided practice on the grammar component. However, for struggling students, particularly those who English is their second language, focus on a more clear construction of sentences is more valuable before introducing the rules of grammar.
The latest available curriculum document provided by the Australian Curriculum and Reporting Authority is the Shape of the Australian Curriculum. This document is the foundation of the Australian English curriculum. Strikingly, grammar is considered a key term in the document, within which grammar is defined as the language we use and the description of language as a system. In describing language, attention is paid to both structure, syntax, and meaning, semantics, at the level of the word, the sentence, and the text. 3 strands form the construct of the National English Curriculum, these strands being language, literacy, and literature. Grammar underpins each of these 3 strands in a significant way. The first strand, language, discusses the importance of developing students' understandings about how the English language works to encourage coherent and cumulative learning across the school years, which is applicable to new settings in and beyond school. Pertinent to grammar for writing, the shaping document states that attention should be given to the teaching of grammar across all years of schooling to help students meet the demands of schooling and their lives outside school. The document continues on to discuss that these demands include writing that can describe, narrate, analyse, explain, recount, argue and review through effective manipulation of grammar. Additionally, grammatical knowledge should be acquired to increase awareness of appropriateness, accuracy, fluency and confidence in writing. The aim, of course, and as the shaping document aptly suggests, is to write grammatically clear, purposefully constructed, coherent sentences, paragraphs and texts, achieving better knowledge of how to choose grammatical structures that are appropriate to the given audience. The literacy strand component of the shaping document clearly states the desired outcome for writing, and this is to achieve coherence, precision and imagination in writing. It is expected that learning will include the structure and functions of word and sentence level grammar and text patterns and the connections between them. And there is an expectation that grammatical understanding will not just be learnt in isolation, but instead also applied. This notion of going beyond simple knowledge of grammar and writing and being able to apply it to create and understand text for different purposes is reiterated throughout the shaping document. The goal for teaching grammar for writing is not simply to impart knowledge about patterns, but more poignantly, to be able to apply such patterns to create a meaningful, appropriate and purposeful text. The shaping document suggests that explicit teaching of the fundamentals is required to be embedded within all language, literacy and literature tasks across all years, and that knowledge can be built upon progressively over the school years. The literature strand is all about understanding, appreciating, responding to, analysing and creating literature, and whilst this strand has the least implications upon grammar in comparison to the other 2 strands, there is an expectation that students will be informed by grammatical understandings to manipulate text for different audiences. The literacy strand is designed to facilitate a growing repertoire of English language and usage, and within this strand it is again reiterated that knowledge is applied and, as the shaping document suggests, put to purposeful and practical work. The document explicitly states that the value of learning grammar lies not simply in the ability to name a grammatical feature, text type or genre. Rather, the educational questions to start with are: what is the purpose of this communication, and in that light, what grammatical formations and text types can best achieve it? The Australian curriculum extends the student beyond the simple barriers of grammatical knowledge. Instead, practical and purposeful applications of knowledge to allow imagination and creativity, producing authentic communication are deemed important, encapsulating clarity, accuracy and fluency. The shaping document provides guidelines across 4 year groupings, and grammar plays a pivotal role in each grouping. In the first grouping of K to 2, students are exposed to foundational knowledge relative to grammar, such as punctuation, including capital letters, full stop, and basic sentence structure. Students are expected to write for different audiences, including applying basic knowledge to creating short texts with single words and sentences, and later on moving to more sophisticated sentences. The next grouping of years 3 to 6, grammar plays a greater role within the language strand. Students' understanding is expected to develop in relation to grammatical features, but more importantly, there is an expectation that students can manipulate these understandings. The document suggests that students in these levels are exposed to more complex punctuation, clause and sentence structure, and as understanding is developed, meta-languages for sentence structures and so on is also developed. This enables greater discussion about grammar for writing and consequential greater understanding and applications. The groupings for years 7 to 12 and 11 to 12 also gives importance to grammar, and in particular expect an application of grammatical knowledge and understanding to be demonstrated in writing for a purpose. In short, grammar for writing is developed throughout the entirety of the English curriculum and throughout the entirety of the schooling, and the aim for such education is to gain knowledge and to consequently apply such knowledge to ensure success in school and beyond.
In conclusion, grammar is an essential part of English and language within every day. Without grammar, you cannot attain literacy. There'd be no text that could be read effectively, and no effective communication between peers and within social life. For this reason, it is imperative that grammar for writing is taught.